Welcome to Learning from Experiences. I'm your host, Ronak Agarwal, and today I'm joined with Mr. Paul Gray. Mr. Gray is the managing partner of Ironhold Capital and co-founder of Leaders in Business and Investing. Mr. Gray has a lot of experience in real estate investment and asset management, private equity, banking and product development, and in corporate credit and coverage. Mr. Gray, thank you for taking the time to talk today.
Ronak, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I would like to start off talking with you about your role in Leaders in Business and Investing. It's all about lessons from those that did it best. What made you want to start conversations with leaders in the business, particularly the finance world?
Well, probably much like the way you want to start the show, we also want to start our show to learn from some of our own idols and mentors. And those being some of the most prominent guests that we've had on the show, like the president of the Hedge Fund Association, Mitch Jackals, the Chief Executive Officer of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci, or perhaps the Chief Investment Officer of Gotham Capital, Joel Greenblatt. And we were always very fond of these individuals, and in order to learn from them and share those experiences with our audience and our followers, we thought it would be a good idea to leverage those contacts and then bring them on the show to essentially ask them the questions that we always wanted to ask them in the past. To give you a couple examples, like if you saw my interview with Scaramucci, I was asking him how does he raise capital and build meaningful relationships? Because there's nobody in the industry that does it better than him. My partner, Siddharth Sangai, who's the Chief Investment Officer of Ironhold Capital, he had the good fortune of asking Joel Greenblatt how he manages his own portfolio, and also the famous value investor, Whitney Tilson. So learning from these people has been very instrumental in our own business and operations. And I hope it's been meaningful to you and our audience as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I actually did watch your interview with Anthony Scaramucci, and there was definitely a lot of great stuff in there. And then the next talking point I would like to bring up is, what approach do you take to grow yourself and your business?
Well, what I try to do in my own personal life is try to find the people that I most want to be like. One of the things that Warren Buffett touches on so frequently is that if you want to be like a certain individual, you have to understand what got that person there. So I try to look at some of my own idols, whether that's Mr. Warren Buffett or some people within my personal sphere who are perhaps less well known. And I try to see, what makes them so good in their work life and in their personal life. And then I try to mirror that myself.
Sounds good. And then talking a little bit more about high finance. So what do you think some people need to do to learn more about high finance? What are some of the skills and knowledge that students might need to get into the world of finance nowadays?
Well, I don't think it's enough just to rely solely on your education. I think you have to go out there and get real world experience. And in my own experience, we hire a lot of people here in Ironhold Capital. And from what I find, it doesn't matter where someone goes to school or what background they might have. You could go to Harvard University or, a small community college, and it wouldn't really matter. It really comes down to, number one, do you have the passion for finance? Unfortunately, I meet a lot of young people that just join finance because they think it's the easy route to make money. And, that's not really the case. As you might know, Ronak, this is a very hard industry that we're in, and it weeds people out very quickly. So that's definitely not an option. So you have to have a true passion, and, learning corporate finance in college is not enough. You really have to understand how investing works. And there's obviously different forms and different elements of of finance. You could go into venture capital, you could go into private equity, you could go into hedge funds, but you really have to understand how the business works. And the best way to do it is to actually get real world experience. And then of course it comes down to the question, how do you go out there and get that experience, right? So it really boils down to, hitting the pavement every day, putting your resume out there, expanding your network, and trying to position yourself the best you can for success in the future.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And when you talk about networking, is there certain people that are trying to get into finance should reach out to, or just network with a lot of different individuals in the business industry?
Yeah, you see, my problem with networking, Ronak, is I think a lot of people get it wrong. In my experience, watching a lot of business students, the typical thing that they usually do is they go to networking conferences and they try to speak to as many people as they can. And, you know, really, it's very hard for you to have more than 7 or 10 friends, or close friends, right? And to really expand your network that widely is not the best use of your time, in my opinion. Because for someone to recommend you for a job, they really, really need to believe in you, right? Because they're putting their own name and reputation on the line.
Right.
So, in my own personal experience, and this might not work for everyone else, but I have always been interested in curating more meaningful relationships with a fewer number of individuals. And I try to select the people that best resemble my own personal interests and people that have, they're hardworking, they have great integrity, and it takes time. This is not something that happens overnight. So I'm very fortunate to have a very good circle around me, and I would do anything for these people. I'd pick up the call for them at any time, any hour of the day, and I know they would do the same for me. But if I had done it differently by going out there and speaking to hundreds of people, I don't think that would have been the best use of my time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. It's more about cultivating relationships over connections.
Exactly.
Okay, yep. And then I watched your recent segment with Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital, and he said, when someone says no, you should flip it and turn it on. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah, I love that. So, he went on to say that you really have to be a woodpecker when it comes to capital raising, right? Because just because someone says no today doesn't mean it might not be a yes tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you watch the full interview, one of the things he says at the end is he really looks for hedge fund managers that have that X factor. And essentially, what that means to me is he's looking for the managers that are not going to go away so easily. As you know, Ronak, this is a really challenging industry, and it's very easy to get shaken up quickly. But you really have to really believe in yourself, your product, and your business, and kind of have the fortitude to move forward. And unfortunately, in this business of ours, we're very used to hearing the word no, but that doesn't deter us. That doesn't slow us down in any way, shape, or form. So, um, as long as you believe in yourself, I feel like anything can be accomplished, and we're definitely a testament to that. By what we were able to accomplish here at Ironhold Capital in such a short period of time.
And then I want to jump off a little bit and talk about something. What would you say your most valuable experience has been?
I had the good fortune of having a very good father, and watching him in both his personal and business life was definitely very, very instrumental to me in my own career, my own personal life, and my own family. And having such a good role model at an early age was a huge step up for me. Apart from that, I would say I've also just like any entrepreneur out there, have had a lot of failures in life, but I was at least smart enough to learn from each of those failures and kind of move and grow forward from that. So I would say the same to any entrepreneur that might be listening. You really can't beat yourself down when something is not working your way. You really need to learn from those experiences and then grow from it. And those experiences will only make you better and stronger. It's just a matter of actually putting in the time, the hard work, and having the belief in yourself.
Okay. And say someone does not have that belief in themselves, what would you recommend is a great way to build up that self-confidence and self-belief?
It really comes from, I would say, building your experience and your resume. I mean, you really have to go out there and try things and really put yourself out there, and don't necessarily worry about failure. I mean, if you think about it, scientists say that the chance of coming to life, the chance of being born is 1 in 300 trillion. So not believing yourself and worrying about what other people might think about you is really not a good use of your time, obviously, right? We're so fortunate to be alive, especially if you have good health. And if you put it into perspective, planet Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years. The average person, if you and I are lucky, Ronak, will live to about 80 years here in a developed country. If you think about it, 80 years to 4.5 billion years is really a flash of a second,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So what I tell people all the time is you only get one shot at this life, right? Until you move to the next chapter. And you don't really want to be on your deathbed one day thinking to yourself, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have called this person, right? You want to take advantage of the opportunity now while you still have it. And I feel like a lot of people that don't believe in themselves essentially don't believe in themselves because they're worried about what other people might think about them, whether it's their friends, their families, their teachers. Who cares what those people think? Find out what your passion is, really do it to the best of your ability, and leave no regrets behind you.
I think that's so important and so well said. Yeah, that's definitely something I've had a problem with, where I did worry about, even when starting this, I was like, what are my friends gonna think about this?
Right.
And then one night I was just like, I have to just send like 2 or 3 messages, so I'm committed to starting this. I chose 2 or 3 people and just sent them a message saying, hey, I'm gonna do this. Um, you know, let's hop on a Zoom. That way I couldn't back out. So it kind of worked out well. It's been a lot of fun, meeting new people and learning from them.
Exactly. And look at all the amazing people and the amazing connections you've made along the way. I've had the pleasure of watching a lot of your interviews, and it seems like you're building meaningful relationships from doing this. And you'll see eventually, within a given period of time, you're going to expand and grow into whatever career or pursuits you have. So if you're interested in finance, you're going to build a lot of connections through this show. And obviously, you wouldn't be able to do that if you're worried about what everyone else thought about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, yeah, 100% agree with you there. Definitely a very nice side benefit of knowing some great people and learning from them. And then, so building off of that, is there any particular advice that sticks out to you on how to succeed in the professional world?
Absolutely. One of the problems I have when speaking to young people is, what's the most common advice that successful people give to young people when they ask them, how did you do it? How did you become successful? What's that most common piece of advice, would you say?
Mm, I would say perseverance, not giving up, constantly, bringing the effort and
Mhm.
just leaving it all out there.
Right. So the most common thing that people usually say is hard work,
Okay.
and the, which is essentially the same, right?
Mhm.
But the problem that I have with that is obviously hard work is a part of the equation, right?
Yes.
But it's not the only thing, because everyone at some shape and form works hard.
Mhm.
But telling a young person work hard is essentially like telling a young person to put fuel in a jet, right? And
Yes.
tell him to take off. Before you take off in a jet, you have to understand how to use the control panels,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Same thing with being an entrepreneur. Before you become an entrepreneur, you can't just say, I'm going to work hard. You have to understand how to build a product, how to build a business, how to identify a market, how to identify a niche, how to build a team, how to do marketing and sales, how to scale a business. All these things are very important. And if an entrepreneur doesn't understand this at the beginning, it's really hard for them to succeed. That's why most entrepreneurs that you see, Ronak, are usually third or fourth time founder, the ones that are successful, because they have to learn these things through their own experiences, right? And the best way to learn anything is through failure.
Right. And that's personally why I love reading books about, what people have done and, talking to people, because you get to learn about the failures they've made in such a short amount of time. Like you can read someone's life biography like 70, 80 years in maybe a week and then not make the mistakes that they made. So I think it's a great way to learn firsthand of what has worked for other people and what can work for you.
Exactly. Whatever mistakes you make, thousands of people have made it before.
Exactly. And then jumping off that, away from the professional world, what would you say is the most important lesson that you've learned in life through your experiences and journey?
Well, I would say it's going back to what we were speaking about before. live every day like it was your last, because we're so blessed to have this opportunity to live the life that we're living, especially if we're fortunate enough to be in good health, that we never want to worry about, frivolous things like what are people saying about us or what we might consider to be things that are going wrong in our life. And if we think about it, a lot of the things are laughable. So I would say, you know, to really pursue your passion and your dreams, and to take advantage of everything that's in front of you. And that's essentially what I try to do, and why we started this company at such an early age. Well, surround yourself with the right people, the people that inspire you, the people that have the energy, and that energy will rub off on you. Because if you met my circle, Rodik, the friends that I told you about, if you sat next to these guys for just a minute, you would be instantaneously inspired, and you would be working weeknights, weekends, just like we are, and enjoying every minute of it.
That's great. I 100% agree. I think there's a saying, you become the five closest people in your life. Like you basically become them, a combination of them.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then last thing, we're talking about teamwork, all these people in your life. How does one create a solid team around them to, help them grow and thrive in the world?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the interesting thing is what makes every company great is the people that they put into place, right? And if you look at all the great entrepreneurs, all the great business executives, whether you look at Steve Jobs or Warren Buffett, what they do so well is that they're able to select the brightest talent for that particular role, right? Whether it's finance, marketing, business development, whatever it might be, and then putting them in the right position to succeed. And one of the people that I admire the most is Andrew Carnegie. And I'm not sure if you know this, Ronik, but on his grave, on his tombstone, he wrote the secret to his success, which was essentially, here lies a man that was smart enough to hire people smarter than himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing about that is, he's essentially telling you that the way he created such a great business, such a great empire, was because he hired really smart people, put them into positions where he believed they could succeed, and made sure that he gave them all the resources and incentives to make them successful.
Yeah, I think I heard something. I think it was Jack Ma of Alibaba who talked about this. He's like, I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just have to know how to get the smartest people in the room work together.
Exactly. And that's the same thing within the hedge fund space, because if you look at some of the brightest folks in the hedge fund industry, or some of the greatest managers, rather, like if you look at Ken Griffin of Citadel, Ray Dalio of Bridgewater Associates, or perhaps James Simons of Renaissance Technologies, these guys are great investors, but they're even better managers. They're very well known for selecting the best talent on Wall Street and then putting that talent together in the same room. And that's something that they all have in common. And that's something, if you ever seen our episodes with Greg Zuckerman, who wrote the book The Man Who Solved the Market, that's something that he touches on. And also the episode that we did with the president of the Hedge Fund Association, Mitch Ackles, that's another thing that he touches on as well, the importance of a business around a hedge fund.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely you guys are doing something well at Ironhold Capital. The immense amount of growth I've seen just on LinkedIn and the following, it's been wonderful to watch that journey happen.
Thank you so much. I'm really humbled to hear you say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me.
It's been a pleasure and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.